Okay, let's just jump right in. What if a state-level cyber attack was announced live on the internet, days before it actually happened? I know, it sounds like something straight out of a movie, right? But it's not. It's the new reality of cyber warfare. Today, we are diving deep into something called social audio intelligence, or SOCAUDINT, and we're going to do it by breaking down the absolutely wild events of March 2026, all centered around a cybersecurity analyst named Alberto Hill and a hacktivist group called the Cronus Mafia. So, here's our roadmap. First, we'll look at how cyber war just isn't hiding in the shadows anymore. It's gone fully public. Then, we'll meet the two kinds of personalities that dominate this new battlefield, the knight and the broker. After that, we're going to dissect this brilliant, kind of bonkers strategy called the Italian work. From there, we'll get into the really messy stuff, the trauma and ego that actually drives these people. And finally, we'll tackle the big question. What does it mean when the people we might have to rely on as digital saviors are, well, deeply flawed?
All right, so to really get a handle on this, the first thing you have to understand is that the entire battlefield has shifted. For literally decades, we thought of cyber threats as these secret things happening on the dark web, in hidden forums. Well, that's over. That era is done. Now, these threats are being broadcast live for absolutely anyone with a social media account to tune into.
And that question right there, that is the absolute heart of this whole new era. You know, if you're studying cybersecurity, this changes everything. It's not just about defending against some silent, invisible attack anymore. Now you're also managing a public spectacle. This is basically geopolitical conflict being treated like live entertainment.
And there's a name for this whole new mess, social audio intelligence, or SOCAUDINT. For any of you studying this stuff, this is a concept you've got to know. We are literally watching in real time as this lawless digital frontier gets mapped out. And the crazy part is, the threat actors, the analysts, and the journalists, they're all on the same stage at the same time.
And we're not talking about some tiny niche forum either. Check this out. On March 19th, 2026, more than 5,000 people logged into an X space. Not for a podcast, not for a celebrity interview, but to listen to the Cronus Mafia announce that they were about to attack the government of Argentina. This wasn't some leak. It was a press conference for an act of cyber war.
And here's what it actually looks like in the wild. You can see it right there. You've got the defaced government website on the screen, and you've got the actual attackers in the audio space talking about it, live. They're not just breaking into systems anymore, they are completely controlling the story around the breach. It's this powerful strategy, sometimes called cyber-populism, where you try to win over the public to your side for doing something totally illegal.
And look, don't for a second think these are just some script kiddies messing around. This timeline shows you the Cronus Mafia evolved over 5 years. They went from being small players on regional forums to a seriously sophisticated group that could pull terabytes of data from national governments. Their live attack announcement against Argentina, that was the big finale after years of leveling up their skills.
So this wild public arena, it's not just for launching attacks, it's a stage, and it creates these larger-than-life personalities. And to really get what SOCAUDINT is all about, you have to understand the people who operate in it. And that brings us to two main types, the digital knight and the digital broker.
This chart just nails the difference. On one side, you've got Alberto Hill, who we're calling the digital knight. His authority comes from his technical skills and his willingness to actually get in the ring and talk to the threat actors. But on the other side, you have Hector Lopez, the digital broker. His reputation was all built on being a media personality. So when he got challenged on technical details in a live public space, he completely folded, refused to debate, started making threats instead. In this kind of transparent environment, that's a reputational death sentence. Game over.
Okay, so now let's see what this digital knight archetype can do when things get serious. We're going to look at this just brilliant case study and creative problem solving. It's called the Italian work. So picture this. You've got a famous actress. Her Meta account gets hijacked. Inside is 15 years of her cancer diaries, completely irreplaceable, deeply personal stuff. And Meta's multi-billion-dollar automated support system? Totally useless. It just kept closing your tickets over and over with no human ever looking at it. This is like the textbook definition of institutional failure. And the solution? Man, this is where it gets so cool. It wasn't a technical hack at all. It was a bureaucracy hack. See, Hill's team used the actress's Italian citizenship to trigger European GDPR laws. Then, by reframing the account takeover as criminal stalking, they yanked it out of Meta's little world of terms of service and dropped it right into the lap of the Italian state police. This created what they called a compliance collision, which basically forced Meta's actual human lawyers to get involved. They used old-world law to beat a new-world algorithm. Just genius.
But, and this is a huge but, all of that genius doesn't happen in a vacuum. Let's pivot now to the incredibly messy, volatile, and just deeply human side of things behind this group known as Hackers United.
See, the glue holding this crew together isn't just a shared interest in tech, it's shared trauma. Every single one of the core members feels like they've been screwed over by some major institution. The justice system, the healthcare system, law enforcement, you name it. And this shared feeling of being failed by the system, well, it's the rocket fuel for both their brilliance and their volatility.
And this is where that volatility becomes a huge professional problem. I mean, this slide lays out an actual public screaming match between two of their main people. And it wasn't in a private chat, it was live with over 800 people listening in as they're throwing around accusations of vaporware and sabotage. For anyone studying this field, this is a perfect example of how personal ego can directly torpedo a group's technical reputation.
And the instability goes way beyond just professional drama. The very same Digital Knight, the guy who pulled off that genius Italian work strategy, he also threatened his ex-fiancée with narco-hackers over a personal money dispute. And that just throws this massive ethical question on the table. Can we really afford to rely on saviors who are this brilliant, but also this incredibly erratic?
So let's try to bring this all home. These vigilantes, these flawed saviors, they aren't actually the root of the problem. They're a symptom of something much, much bigger, a massive breakdown in our institutions.
And if you want a perfect picture of the incompetence they're reacting to, look no further. This quote is from Hill's own prosecution back in 2017. The state claimed something that was, based on the network logs, mathematically absurd, literally impossible. They even botched the evidence handling so badly that they left 29 hard drives at the scene. So when the official authorities are this technically illiterate, it creates a vacuum. And these chaotic, flawed, but brilliant people are the ones who rush in to fill it.
But here's the thing. This whole era of messy, flawed human actors, it might be coming to a close. The next big thing is already on the horizon. It's being called the Claude Code Paradigm. And this isn't an AI just running a pre-written script. We're talking about an AI that acts like an entire hacking team, writing its own exploits, building its own tools, and stealing data, all with zero human intervention.
And that leaves us with one final, kind of terrifying question. If today's cyber conflicts are all about messy human egos and trauma, tomorrow's might be completely cold and clinical. What happens when an attacking AI runs into a defending AI? Will they fight? Or will they maybe negotiate some kind of treaty in a language we can't even understand and lock us, humanity, out of our own digital wars for good?